Let us now go back to business. Before the presentation is ready, I will maybe say a few words about my point of view. The closest to omnichannel in Poland is the Allegro Group, which has the biggest overlapping of different platforms and how you can start here the transaction and finish it later. I'm not sure if this is omni-channel or some kind of multi-channel or cross-channel transaction when it comes to the names. And when it comes to France, Czarek, Carrefour had a great attitude, a great approach there, and their omnichannel solutions are quite nice. I won't be talking a lot about omnichannel itself, but I will focus on the tool set that support omnichannel and how we can reach that. And I will also say something about omnichannel from the point of view of the merchant and from the point of view of the operator of card payments as well as supplier of card processing. Maybe less from the point of view of end user and end customer. This omnichannel should simply be transparent for the end customer, and the end customer shouldn't even know that this worked. What is Elixir Group? Well, we are an integration company competent in different technologies. We are also advisors. We carry out audits, and when it comes to card payments, if you're interested in cooperating with us, I would invite you to talk to me afterwards. I won't tell you what omnichannel is because it has been discussed by the previous speakers, but I would like to say something about the payment facilitator. Who is a payment facilitator? Why isn't it present in Poland? Because it only works in e-commerce. It is being introduced in m-commerce, but it does not function in points of sale or physical points, and why I think this is the future. This way of processing card transactions and building offer for the market. This is a kind of new quality when it comes to processing card payments and processing card transactions. Until now, you had to be an acquirer, you had to build these competences and invest a lot of money to be such an acquirer, also have this effect of scale and build relations with Visa and MasterCard. That's why there are not many acquirers, because this business is getting more and more difficult and requires more effect of scale. But there are still some subjects like ISO, independent service operators, which are subjects which are sales channels for the existing acquirers. The problem for them is that they are sales channels and they maybe supply some additional services, but um, they don't subscribe, they don't under sign this contract, this debiting contract, and when it comes to how they process this card transactions, they are not a party to the contract, and because of that, they cannot create price politics and they cannot also manage their business fully, but they are dependent on the acquirer and their approach to the business. After all the experiences that we gathered, Visa and MasterCard came to the conclusion after their experiences with PSP, they will introduce a new status which is called payment facilitators. It existed already for e-commerce transactions, but for other card transactions it wasn't there, and now it covers nearly all types of transactions. A relevant information here is that in this whole chain there is still acquirer here. PF is so to say chained to acquirer, is connected with the acquirer, but the acquirer is still the responsible subject, and the security of the end consumer is still being in the hands of the acquirer. Who is it addressed to? These are only a few examples, and this should go only in one direction. It was being dedicated for micro merchants, and it was connected with the amount of transactions. It was only $100,000 for one organization, for one merchant, and after going over this sum, you could no longer be a PF for the merchant. It was raised to 1 million in the meantime. MasterCard raised it to 1 million and Visa resigned from this solution. What is cross-border? How can an acquirer enter the Polish market, the foreign acquirer? Well, it's not that easy because these markets have their own local conditions, and not only one foreign acquirer already had problems with entering Polish market because they didn't understand how Polish market works, and only through some kind of overtakings it was possible to get on the Polish market. In case of PF, an acquirer that does not have license to offer services on Polish market, he can contract a PF that will be the front for them, and proceed with card payments having the competences for one market. So this is one of the solutions. And also the use of specific industries, specific branches where you need specific competences and some specific integrations and some specific customer approach. In those industries, it will be possible to be a PF. What can a PF do and what cannot he? He can, when he's connected to an acquirer or many acquirers, he can do nearly everything an acquirer does. A PF is not connected to one acquirer. He can dynamically redirect transactions if he has systems to do that, dependent on where such transactions are profitable. Of course, if there are some outages or problems, he can manage the redirection of processing of transactions. First, of course, proceeding transactions with Visa and MasterCard, as well as collective calculation of these payments. And when he has full control of his business, he signs one contract. He doesn't need to undersign a contract with every acquirer. There is also the monitoring of transactions and risk management and chargeback processing. It stays with the acquirer, but all the other things are with the PF, who is responsible for that, and it's independent. Architecture of such a solution is there is this secure space of the acquirer where there is this payment gateway, and which is a host in the processing, because it can cover different channels, different tools, POS, MPOS, commerce, e-commerce, whatever you like. But also use some additional encrypting keys, so you can switch the transactions to different acquirers, or switch the merchant without the acquirer for a merchant without asking the merchant for permission. There is obviously at the end this one account presented by the PF, no matter how many acquirers were used by the merchant. And as long as the merchant doesn't want to know which acquirer proceeded with the transactions, he doesn't even receive this information. So this is on the part of the PF, but there are not many collaterals to the card organization. So it's far easier than if you are an acquirer. You can secure and offer some functions without generating huge costs. You need a payment gateway and some kind of system, not that complicated as in case of acquire, and of course a CRM to proceed with some requests. We are talking about a facilitator, but we should talk about Omnichannel, and the previous speakers already talked about it. And there are a few questions about that. Why is it a payment facilitator and why does he function in this concept of omnichannel? How do you proceed with a transaction with different payment instruments in different money on different trade channels? How can you combine such a transaction with a later return or part return, or if there are different payment instruments in play? Can one subject do that? Can one subject be able to cover all the schemes of payment on all channels of the merchant? Now it seems to be extremely easy in Poland, but there are not many PFs in Poland, not many payment facilitators. Should a merchant to cover the service for that build systems similar to those of the acquirer? So should he build some kind of management risk tools and fraud management tools? So if we want to do it as a merchant, can we leave it with the merchant, or should we um, put it to the merchant so that the merchant does it? Can we do it in such a way that it's transparent, fast, and easy for the customer? A one-click solution, for example? Well, these are the questions that are all around the omnichannel concept with different and provide us with different solutions. How can you become a payment facilitator? First of all, you need to have an acquirer, because an acquirer is responsible before the card organizations for everything, not the payment facilitator. You have to register it. These subjects are also regulated. So such a subject, in order to put their hands on the means, he has to have the permission to act in full, also as an acquirer. This is very important because I analyzed that. You can be a PF on a different market without a payment institution. In Poland, it's not possible, nearly not possible. What's more, such a payment institution is bound by anti-money laundering, and it has to invest in different systems in order to proceed such transactions and has to cover the costs of that. There is, of course, a number of additional requirements that I won't discuss today because it's not time and place, but they are also very well known. Fast SWOT analysis for you. Why should you become a payment facilitator? What are the good sides and bad sides? First of all, innovation and the dynamic redirection of processing of payments to different acquirers. You can also manage risks of the merchant at the level of the PF. Of course, the last word is with the acquirer. There is also a faster return from this investment, and another important element is compensation of this payments due. And for example, ISO nowadays has its terminals and additional services, but they also have a process that is card product and has nothing to do with any other payment options. So if he has to vindicate somebody from additional services like prepaid or bill payment, and on the other side he has the received money from card transactions, he cannot compensate because he doesn't have the right to do that. If he has a PF, he has his risks covered and the flows of money also are covered, so he can earn more. The direct relation between them, there is only one contract, and also the multi-channel possibility. So he can connect all the channels well. You are under the supervision of the Financial Supervision Authority in Poland. Of course, you have to pay a fee on card transactions. Everybody pays them. But what's the problem in Polish legal system with that? There is this multi-fee for the same transaction. So if you, as a payment facilitator and at the same time as keep, you have an acquirer on the other side, which is also a bank or a keep, it would be better if it's a keep, and you, for example, connect to eCard, which is a payment institution, but you have own customers at your payment institution, you pay twice for the supervision. And this is being counted on the value of transactions. If in this chain is a third subject, you pay 3 times, and this is only one such case in the world. We made our acts in this way. Investment in technical infrastructure is also needed here, as well as legal changes which concern everybody. We don't know what happens in 5 years and if there will be, for example, zero interchange fee, and all the business models will have to be constructed again or will simply go down. There is another problem if a merchant has turnover with MasterCard over 1 million, it has to be given back to the acquirer. But there are some different waivers and some kind of waiving agreements which will allow you to not to have to do it. You can in the future make such a PF acquirer model, but why is a PF even more profitable than acquire? If you want to start your business, you will have to pay huge fees to the card organizations if you want to be an acquirer. So all the settlement fees, marketing fees, volume fees are at very high level. If you are a PF, then you use this payments on the level of the acquirer. So the acquirer, the bigger the acquirer, the better it is for you because you use their fees. And if you, of course, gather speed and get bigger, you can go up. It doesn't have to be a rule here, but you can also sell this model to other retailers because the model of the payment facilitator has been created for big merchants. And for example, Orlen is a huge chain in Poland. It has also franchise stations, and it could want to do all the card settlement on their own account. And this would be a great tool for Orlen to become payment facilitator. I think they have been attempting to do that for a few years, but it may they may also succeed in the future. The other things that we see here are less relevant. One of the threats is the compression of margins and further consolidation on the market, but this is a threat for everyone. And also a comparison of attractivity of these models, payment facilitator against ISO. First of all, if we are a PF, we buy the service in total from the acquirer. Look, I have everything with my own. I want you to take this authorization request, send it to Visa, give me feedback if the bank accepts that, and once a day give me all the money from my transactions. That's all, thank you very much. And this is also a different talk because the costs for the acquirer are far lower and the offer is far better than in case of ISO. Another very profitable element is that the PF is creating their price list as they wish. If they want to do it also under the costs, they can do it, and if he loves the merchant, he can do it. In case of ISO, it's normally impossible. I haven't seen an ISO where the acquirer would allow such a strategy. Compensation we talked about, dynamic redirection of transactions were also covered, the contractual relations also. Direct management of the technological part. This translates into very fast and very adapted integration. If the merchant has some specific requirements when it comes to these payment systems and we want this merchant to be with us because we have the competences, we want to integrate further this technological part, and in case of ISO this is quite difficult. What are the benefits? Everyone benefits from that, not only the PF. It would seem that only PF earns money on that, but it's not like that really, because the acquirer reduces the costs of its activity. It doesn't have to sell, it doesn't have to provide service to the merchant or some additional service. The system has to work, and he also gets a database of retailers that will work under him for Visa and MasterCard. And Visa and MasterCard will also know that this is being done by the PF. He also approaches retailers which he would not approach, and he can enter industries thanks to some added services. This is also great for the PF. What about frauds? When it comes to frauds, the frauds are on the part of the payment facilitator. So payment facilitator is responsible for all the frauds, and the risk is far bigger here. And what's more, the foreign PFs can enter our market quite easily, and the payment facilitator builds some unique competence when it comes to card transactions, cooperates with different acquirers, and easily integrates the merchant solutions with the payment, optimizes costs, and while the acquirer has a better contract than in case of ISO, and the investment in case of PF is not that high. The price list of the acquirer is being used and not the price list of the PF. In case of the retailer has the offer he wants, and the PFs are strong in some particular industries, particular branches. In case of multi-switching, if one acquirer doesn't work, the other one will work. If the local does not work, you can send it to somewhere else and it will function all the time. Taking into consideration the recent outages on Monday, this would be of value here. let's skip this new business model where everything is with the PF in case of added services, for example. This is a MasterCard slide. The PF is not present in Poland, but it is present in some industries, and this is for MPOS, and 60% of are under the platform provider, but 33% of MPOSs are under payment facilitator. An important information here is also that there are 237 payment facilitators in Europe. This is info from yesterday. In Poland, there are 7 of them. All of them are e-commerce payment facilitators. One is m-commerce facilitator. There are no m-pos facilitators, but this will probably change in the near future. Some more statistical data for us, some of them are quite justified even. And this is an analysis about the acquiring business. We had a decrease of IFs and the acquiring business also grew thanks to that. After deducing the costs and the interchange fee, there was a growth. There was a huge growth in 2016 because of the decrease of the interchange, and the transaction volumes will go up, margins will go down, and the cost of one transaction will go down. And even though the volume of transactions will go up, there will be no such revenues from this market, or it won't grow as dynamically. Maybe the European Commission will come up with zero interchange fee, and thanks to that, we won't have revenue from that, and we will have to look for revenue somewhere else. I thought about a case for PF to give you an example of use. There are a few niches, few industries that would suit a PF in an ideal way. One of them are couriers, delivery firms. They are not present in payments. If we see InPost as such a delivery firm that is present, maybe it may be an example. But you could, for example, pay at the delivery no matter what the payment is, if it's card or cash or even Blik. You buy in e-commerce or m-commerce and you decide when the courier approaches him. Nobody can do it since many years because there are problems with that, challenges. Business model first, price list model in m-commerce and POS, and of course every payment for at delivery. We know that the merchants, m-commerce merchants, pay 1 zloty additionally for cash at delivery. So we would have to put there also the cost of card payment, and the interchange fee will probably be bigger than that. But we could, for example, not pay any attention to that, because the PF could function as a collector for the merchant, and the courier will only the merchant will send the product and it will be collected by the courier. But you would have to send it on a terminal and print it out on the confirmation from the terminal. There should be the courier and not the merchant, but it would have to be a very precise system for different merchants before processing all these transactions, and such a merchant could function on his own terms, business terms, with PF acquirer, and courier would not be interested at all in that. But if on the payment confirmation there was not the courier as collector, but he would be as the he would be also responsible for chargebacks. If the product was damaged or something else, the chargeback would be with the courier, and the couriers won't take the responsibility for that. What's more, the integration is extremely important. You have to give them MPOS or POS. This is your terminal. This will work via Bluetooth or a cable or anything else. You don't have to do anything else. Here you have the library, the database, and it's just like that. Another important thing is that the merchants have their own acquirers and they cannot resign from them. If we have a PF, we simply add acquirers and we switch the acquirers according to merchants. Another aspect that is a challenge, the customers are for now accustomed to paying cash at delivery because they think they will be more secure when giving money for the package they see and know what it is. If we had the possibility to pay card, probably they would use cards at delivery. What's the solution? You need a PF with good authorization host, with good integration, with good tools, MPOS tools, and you don't have to print everything out. It can be also electronical, the confirmations. What are the benefits? There is no such huge chargeback risk. It sometimes happens that the people don't open to the courier, don't open the door because they don't have cash, they have only the card and they wouldn't uh, pay. Or there are many visits of the courier. Maybe the courier would sell some additional services, for example, accepting a payment with card. Maybe the delivery firms, the couriers don't know that this would be possible, but yeah, it is. There's also the possibility to put the costs of that on the merchant and also better cash management system. So cash handling will be far easier. The courier doesn't have the money, for example, doesn't have the change. And if you are a merchant, you receive the money after a long period. When it comes to cards, you get the money after one day. To sum up, because I'm probably behind time already, we've said that there's the compression of margins in acquiring business and you have to look for money somewhere else. Consolidation on the market is also seen. There will be bigger players when it comes to acquirers and bigger segmentization of the market. The business is getting more and more international, and it's inevitable that the foreign players will come to our market, and PF is the right solution for them. It seems, and I'm also for this theory, big acquirers will be some kind of gross um, processing agencies for these transactions and also connected with one particular merchant from a particular industry. And the specialists will be more visible on the market. They will not only deal with selling card transactions, but they will also do some additional services, some specialist integrations. What's very important, the PF has to proceed with these transactions. He cannot do only cards, but also different other transactions. But if it's a financial institution, he can do it. And regulations, as long as the same debates, we cannot sleep peacefully. Maybe in 2, 3 years, something happens and we will have to reorganize our business. To finish, to sum up, I think that PF is a solution, a very good solution, connected with a payment institution, gives you tailored measures to have cheap and comfortable